Thank you so much for this wonderful and warm welcome. I'm going to have to apologize for having my little workstation set up right here and being seated for much of my talk. I'm not usually seated for a talk, but we're going to give it a try because I have all this technology around here, complete with a spare monitor, a laptop, and a document camera that is going to show you what is on my page right now. Are you seeing it? Yep. So we are going to do some live demonstrations that you can follow along with me. If you are here in person, we have distributed some just regular old copy paper in case you didn't have anything else. And there's also a number of pencils. I may have mentioned them a couple times out amongst the seats. If you need more paper, there's a small stack in the back of the room. Just help yourself. So let me see, just fumble with my hotkeys here on my screen. It's taking my face off the screen and moving it to my presentation. Those of you who are into birding, maybe you did the Great Texas Birding Classic within the last few years. What you're looking at on the screen is the t-shirt artwork from the Birding Classic. What was that? 2004? 2024? Was that 24? I don't know. Time has passed since then. So without much further ado, I guess we're going to get moving along in this. I do have a helper who's going to be giving me time notifications. Who said yes? Thank you. So I can keep track of time and not drone on and on forever. So let's get going with this. I just kind of went through some of my photos and picked a few that might be representative of all of my shenanigans these days. For many years, I've done quite a lot of photography and a little less art. In recent years, I am doing a lot more art, but also photography because I need good reference photos, of course. There's that t-shirt, the Great Birding Classic t-shirt. So I've been a Texas Master Naturalist. I initially certified in 2016. I was part of the fall 2015 class, and I've been going around the greater Houston area doing all manner of nature education since then. When I was growing up, I did quite a lot of art, and I went around with a sketchbook as my constant companion. As I got out of high school, that dropped off. Once I graduated, I was no longer in like the formal art class. I started putting my focus elsewhere, and I kind of dropped off of it. And then it's really hard to pick something back up again because you're like, oh, I feel like I should be so much better than I am now, right? Because when you're doing something a lot, you're constantly improving. I can go back through my old sketchbooks from previous years and be like, oh man, things are really better than they were back then now. But at any rate, moving through the years, quite a lot forward, became a master naturalist and started to get some ideas where I wanted to do art as a means to bringing awareness to some of our conservation issues. So when I got a handy dandy iPad Pro and learned there's a really great app and there's an Apple Pencil, you use it like a tablet, so you can make some really fantastic graphics. So what you're looking at right here is a great blue heron that I digitally painted on my iPad. Actually, one of the cars out there has a super duper large sticker of this exact great blue heron. And it may or may not still be on display at John Paul Landing Park. There's a lake ecology display that has a few of my prints. Here's a barred owl based on a photo I took at Edith Elmore Nature Sanctuary. And during my time with Houston Audubon, I made a number of fun graphics. This one became a giveaway sticker for Bird Week. There was a while back, sometimes what I really need is an idea, some inspiration, and someone to tell me, you know, I really wish such and such existed. When I was doing this other art and put it up on good old social media, Jaime Gonzalez told me it would be really cool. He had this vision of a really neat artwork of the extinct birds of our Houston region. And I thought, oh, exactly. I need to do like a memorial piece. And it took a while to get all four of these birds. Did anyone here know the identity of these four birds? The Eskimo curlew, passenger pigeon. There we go, Carolina parakeet. And what's the big one in the back? Ivory-billed woodpecker. So our lost birds of Houston. On the other side, you're looking at a brand new work that I did as a volunteer commission for an organization. And we will see some more information about that coming out in the coming weeks or months. But here's your sneak preview of some scissortail flycatchers based on a photo that one of my friends took, and some spider lilies. Some of you may know that I went on an adventure last summer, and the primary focus of that adventure was not birds, as a matter of fact. It was essentially one big bio blitz where we were going around and we were finding as much awesome things in the cloud forest and the rainforest, and documenting those things in our sketchbooks and with our cameras, like, you know, like me. So what you're looking at right here, all these bird photos are photos that I took on this trip. It was a 10-day trip called the Andes to Amazon Nature Journaling Adventure. I was kind of leading the charge on birds, and also everything else. So I got us up to 140 species, whereas there are as many as 1,600 species of birds native to Ecuador. Compare that to the number of species native to Texas, we're 600-ish or so. So that's pretty serious birds. Here's a few more, some gorgeous toucans and flower piercers, tanagers, and hummingbirds galore. And a few of my relatively quick field sketch / watercolors of these mountain toucans. Only in the cloud forest, some of these species. Very, very limited range. Just a fantastic experience to see these things. And I will have to tell you a few more details about adventures such as that one a bit later in the presentation. So what we all came here to talk about is sketching birds. And you might wonder, with all of our technology, why? Couldn't we just take a photo of the bird, right? I don't know. Do we all have the telephoto lens and the time and inclination and skill to get those photos? real life doesn't always give us that picture perfection. But what I have here is I have stacks of sketchbooks and even these nice, neat little travel books right here. I'll put those on the camera a bit later and you guys can see these. This is my notes taking. The act of taking physical notes, as a matter of fact, activates the memory centers of your brain. That's why it's so much better for college students to use pen and paper versus rapid fire typing on their laptop when they're in their classes, because research has shown that that actually puts those things even better, deeper in your memory than typing or using your phone to save your eBird list or just sitting there and passively going through a field guide. So making physical lists of birds, making sketches of birds, studying the details enough to commit those details into a sketch, that's what activates your brain cells and makes you a better birder. So who loves identifying gulls? Not me. Gulls are the worst. Sorry, gulls. Only second to sparrows, also known as the LBBs, the little brown birds. So I would challenge you, if you're trying to get a handle on some birds that you're just not really sure about being able to identify in the field, you've never seen them personally, you're trying to figure out this whole new group of birds, sit down with your field guide and make your own sketch. And maybe even like make some comparison sketches between a couple of similar species. And that act of making those notes, that's what sinks those into your memory. Let's see, can you read the labels on the Savannah sparrow and lesser black-backed gull? I just made those like a couple of days ago. Took it all of 5 minutes. So super trying to be super quick. I'm not trying to make a great masterpiece here. So I don't really like to give you a list of steps. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Step 3, do that, and then you'll be an expert. No, what I want to give you is a list of actions that you can take, and they all work together. Let's say each of these actions is like planting a seed. And let's just go ahead and where's my little arrow? There we go. So studying that anatomy, planting a seed, sitting down and sketching, could be sketching from your field guide. That's great. Then getting really deep into those details, studying those feather groups and those field marks. That's another seed. And when you're feeling confident, or when you're not feeling confident, at any point in the process, sit next to a bird feeder or sit next to a rookery. Go somewhere where a lot of birds are going to come by and sketch those things from life. So you plant all these seeds in no particular order, but do all of them as best you can to grow your forest of knowledge. And when you grow a forest, it gives you beautiful, beautiful birds. So these are kind of our pillars for becoming a better birder through art. It is a struggle. I have known the struggle, and there's been a lot of watercolor works that go through like this awkward early stage where it really doesn't look like something I want to present to anybody as a gift or as a commission that they're purchasing from me. But you trust the process and you just keep going. Trust that process. And sometimes I have that exact thought. Ha, it's terrible. But the process is the whole point, not necessarily the final product. The process is what we're looking for this particular purpose that we're talking about in this class today. You just keep going. It's kind of like, I would compare it to like, you ever heard of like rejection therapy? Where you go out and you ask someone for something you know that they're going to say no to, and you get used to hearing no from people, and that's okay. And this making art that doesn't turn out into a masterpiece is okay. And I get used to that, and I don't sit here with a blank page overthinking it and feeling like, oh, I need this line to be perfect or it's going to ruin my whole art. Oh, no, it's ruined. I'm going to erase that whole thing. No, if I don't like it, then I'll just start another one right next to it. All right, so a few things to look at when we are trying to sketch a bird. I'm going to put some little lines and circles superimposed on this bird. Now, living birds are very, very fast. They're active. They're always moving around. What you would want to practice is you see the bird and then close your eyes and look at that snapshot that you recorded in your mind. You take a snapshot of that bird and then you try to record it. Of course, this is talking about field sketching. Few details to take note when you're looking at a bird for any length of time that you want to draw is you want to compare these proportions, the size of that head to that size of that body. You want to look at the angles of its shape. That would be the outside of the bird. You see the angle that the back is this curving, gently curving line, and then the tail's jutting up at this certain angle. You also want to see the bill length in comparison to the head length. This becomes very important with herons and egrets and sandpipers. But even in our little perching birds, our tanagers versus our cardinals, our sparrows, all these things, they have different proportions. Finally, our tail length as it compares to the rest of the body. Now, I'm going to change my display here a little bit, and we're going to play with a little bit of sketching if anyone wants to kind of get situated for that. Let's see. That's looking all right. Now, what you're seeing right here on my sketch bit is a bunch of practice quick drawings that I did. And then I have a couple of other sketchbooks just sitting here. Here's one that I took my sweet time with and used watercolors and colored pencils. And look at this mess right here. This was done maybe like 2 years ago, sitting at some bird feeders. And these are not some great works of art. They're not perfect, but they were very, very quick, which was the point of sketching in the field. Now I'm gonna put out the sketchbook I want. And hello, it's my lap. There we go. And adjust. There. That way I can have it just nicely situated. Let's see. There's our gulls. Hummingbird. Sparrow. There we go. So what I have here is this sweet little prairie warbler. And I've done a very quick sketch of these first steps. So the first thing we are going to do is draw a couple of very simple lines. You can even look at the picture and you can draw in the air from the back of the head down the back of the bird and then continue the angle of the tail. Those are those first steps that we're going to do. Let's see, I'll probably start a clean piece of paper for this. Would you? Oh, yes. I'm getting a very special helper to hold the microphone. Much appreciated. All right, so I have a little bird on my screen now here too. So I'm looking for the back of the neck and
Can you use a darker pencil?
You betcha.
Thank you.
Jan, do we need to turn a light out in front?
So I may be able to hold this myself now that I'm all set up. So what I've got is just a little bit of the back of the head and some back, and the tail is going more or less the same direction as the body. And let's see, I'm going to make a body, nice big oval. Doesn't matter if it's messy, it's fine. We're roughing out shapes. And then I need the head. Roughing shapes out, totally fine. Now I want to get the approximate direction of the bill. So I'm going to draw a line for the bill. This is not how long the bill is. This is just the direction his face is pointing. So then we've got rough in that shape a little bit more. Now I want the throat and just the top of the breast of this bird. So let's see. And that actually helps me see that I did not make that first oval large enough. There we go. There's a much more round bird. So it's starting to take a little bit more shape. Now, this line we put here is approximately the midline of the beak. That's what we're working with. And then the eye will be somewhat perched on top of that line. Now, Next thing we want to look at the start point and the end point, the bottom edge of that wing, and where it sits in comparison relative to that tail. Sometimes the wingtips will be sitting down here. Sometimes they'll be way up here. It just varies. So let's see. I'm looking. Let's start it right about here. And then it's going to go all the way up here. Just like that, more or less. And then we have some tail here. We also have a little bit of shape right here. So we can make another oval for these poofy feathers under the tail, the undertail coverts, if I want to use a technical term. And we have kind of a poof right here for the mass of the wing. So it's kind of helpful to draw that poof. Look at that. All right. And then we have another line, the rest of the tail. Being approximate, we're not shaping it perfectly here. And same with the bill. Very approximate. We have a few feet. A lot of times at this point, I like to just draw lines to represent an outer edge of the legs. These legs are jutting out right here. We got a little bird ankle. And let's approximate coming forward right here. And we got some scribble for a foot. Good enough for government work. So this is a quick sketch practicing proportions right here. Quick proportion sketch. We're not focusing on any of the feather groups, any of the field marks, because we're going to look at those in a few minutes. If I wanted to, I can add in the edges of these different feather groups right here. And primaries and the secondaries. There we go. That's a good start for now. Let me see if I got another bird to look at yet. So that's our starter sketch. How did you feel you did this time? I mean, it's probably better than mine. Mine's done under pressure. All right, so without much further ado, we made one whole quick bird sketch, and now we can actually look at all those feather groups and field marks. So I'm going to set this aside and change my setup again. I'm going to keep moving these things around because it works. Thank you for your help, Bert. All right, I'll find my hotkeys here. There we go. That was our prairie warbler approximation. So that met one of our pillars of becoming a better birder through art. First little foray into planting our forest. Now let's check out the bird anatomy. Now birds, you may have heard, are highly specialized creatures. All of their systems are very specialized for maintaining that miracle of flight. Their bones are very hollow, very light. Incidentally, that's why birds are so breakable and delicate. And when they do break a bone, it's very hard to fix it. Have you ever broken a straw and tried to put it back together? That's kind of how birds are. So we really need to do a great job of taking care of our native wild birds because they need all the help they can get. They're very delicate. Here is a brand new graphic that I made for this presentation because it was about time I had a nice bird skeleton to show. This is actually redrawn from one of my nice book references that's on the table over here, called the Manual of Ornithology, which contains far more information you ever thought you wanted to know about all of the bird anatomy. But it has some great diagrams. So what I have here is a good old pigeon skeleton, the rock dove, just like this little guy strutting his stuff. They have, let's see if my little things pop up. There we go. Very long, flexible necks. They have a lot more vertebrae than we do as mammals. Oftentimes, they have a much longer neck than you would think by looking at them because they have them all scrunched up in that S curve. Very short, fused tail bones, to which all of those feathers, those tail feathers, are attached. And they need to be short and fused so that they have more strength. Imagine our bird predecessor tail, the Archaeopteryx, is very, very long. I can't imagine that was very easy to fly with. They have very simplified and fused limbs. The bones have been vastly reduced in what is the equivalent of the bird's hand up there on his wing and in his legs. And of course, a massive attachment point for those flight muscles, very, very important muscles for an animal that survives by flying away from predators. I took the liberty of drawing human, similarly sized human limbs and pose them just like this bird is posed to show you the equivalent structures in the human hand versus the bird wing, and the human leg versus the bird leg. Birds are walking around on their tippy toes. And unlike us, we walk around on our flat feet, and their knees are way up next to their bodies. You can't really see them. It's always covered in feathers. For their hands, the bones of their fingers or phalanges are vastly reduced and fused. And that forward edge of the wing is actually their wrist right there. That edge, actually, if you look at that pigeon, that bend is his wrist in front. Here is a typical passerine foot. Believe it or not, there's different bones in each of those, different number of bones in each of those toes. And we're looking counting from the back. There's one bone and the claw, and moving from the inside to the outside. 2 bones plus a claw, 3 bones plus the claw, and 4 bones plus the claw. The outermost toe is the most flexible, you'll see. And the one in back is the least flexible. Now, under those feathers is actually quite a lot less bird than you might expect. Let's see. Will it go? There we go. Quite a lot less bird. There we are. We'll wrap them up in some muscle right there, and you'll see that a lot of his center of mass is very concentrated. At the ends of his limbs, there's not a whole lot of weight out there. Out in his feet, there's not like a lot of musculature out there. Everything is moving towards the middle, and that's very helpful for an animal that flies. They're also avian shape changers. Have you ever looked at a little fat bird on a branch, probably on a very cold day, and thought that is the fattest bird I have ever seen? Well, there's actually no way of telling if it's actually the fattest bird you've ever seen because all those feathers can be moved up, moved down. Sometimes the feather groups can move independently of each other so that you just don't know how much fat is actually there. The only way to tell is to have that bird in your hand and be a holder of a state and federal permit to be manipulating that bird and look under his feathers on his belly and find exactly how much fat globs is just below the surface of the skin. Birds are weird, but I love them. Now, moving on to our feather groups. Here is an alder flycatcher. We all know how much fun it is to tell the difference between lots of very similar flycatchers, right? So I thought it might be fun to highlight the feather groups on this guy. So I did an outline of this bird and put that photo underneath him, which you probably can't see in this projection. My apologies. And I am going to go through these feather groups one by one. And as I go to each of them, I'll have a nice little colored region pop up on the screen and a lovely label. So starting with the head, might as well go for the spot that your eyes go to first. The eye, there are 2 to 4 rows of tiny, tight feathers around the eye. Those are the orbital feathers. And if you see any very detailed photos of birds, you can actually pick those out, those orbital feathers. Sometimes those feathers are in a contrasting color, and we call that an eye ring. Let's see. And we'll just work our way forward. The feathers, oftentimes it's a sparsely feathered region in between the eye and the bill, the lores, the laurel feathers. Moving up, the feathers above the lores. In anatomy terms, that would be the supralorals, means above. There you have it, the supralorals. Sometimes that's a slightly contrasting color at the beginning of the bird's supercilium, also called the eyebrow. I like to use like the easy words and mix in some of the hard words as I go. That's the eyebrow of the bird. Anyone seen some cute little chatty wrens with a very vibrant white eyebrow? Moving forward, just above the bill is the bird's forehead. Tippy top of his head would be his crown. Oftentimes with sparrows, there are some stripes on that crown called, what do you know, the crown stripes. Never would have guessed. Now here's another funky word. This is an approximately triangular-ish patch below the eye. And the name is the auriculars, and aural refers to hearing. These are actually covering up the opening of the bird's external ear holes, the auricular feathers right there. Moving just below the auriculars is the malar or malar, one of those. Sometimes there's some stripes moving along the edges, like a malar stripe. And just in front is the bird's throat, like a white-throated sparrow. Just that little patch. Sometimes that's a very contrasting color compared to the rest of them. The back of the head would be the nape on me, and it is also the nape of the bird. Moving down the body, the mantle of the bird also looks somewhat triangular of a region. Forward, the triangular region opposite that would be the breast, like a rose-breasted grosbeak, has a very vibrant red triangle. On either side of that breast would be the sides. Wonder of wonders. And moving down the body, the flanks of the bird, oftentimes if there are streaks in that region, they get very diffuse the further down the body they get. Not pictured because you can't really see it, but below the breast and in between the flanks would be the belly of the bird. And that's where, if you pull the feathers apart, there's actually a bare patch. Believe it or not, birds aren't completely covered by feathers. The feathers just happen to cover up some of those bare patches. If a bird is brooding some eggs, that bare patch on the belly is really handy to get skin to egg contact. Opposite that belly, just above the tail would be the bird's rump, like a yellow rumped warbler, aka butterbutt. And then we have some sets of feathers directly adjacent to the tail. And those are smoothing out and they are protecting the base of those very important tail feathers, the upper tail and undertail coverts. And then finally, our tail, aka the rectrices. And yeah, way below the bird, beyond the legs, under the belly, would be the vent feathers, which is where all of the bird's business happens. In mammals, there are multiple holes. In birds and reptiles, there is just one. That is called the vent or the cloaca. And here is the whole chart. And I actually have a PDF of this available. I'm going to put up a QR code for you guys to download this at the end of the presentation, although I probably have a piece of paper right here. I'll be putting that up at the end so that you can have access to this for your own notes. Now, I skipped over the wing because I wanted to have kind of a double view of the wing. The wing changes shape as it should be able to change shape, because if a bird had to sit around with airfoils open to catching the wind all the time, well, I think he would have a problem. So starting with the area closest to the bird's body, that would be the scapulars. Anyone know about their own scapula? On their back, just adjacent to their shoulder, that would be the scapular feathers. And it looks very prominent on a bird with a folded wing, doesn't it, when compared to an extended wing? Moving out, we have a number of covert feathers. And then different sizes, different rows. Some types of birds only have like 1 or 2 rows, and some types of birds, some raptors, have a lot of rows. These coverts smooth out the airfoil of that wing, give those nice smooth surfaces, and they also protect the bases of the flight feathers, the primaries and secondary feathers, the big ones. Those are very important for their flight. Moving forward, we have the thumb of the bird. Birds still have thumbs. That's called the alula, and they can move it independently. It functions to control the flow of air over their airfoil. And it's just like a plane putting out its flaps when it's coming in to land, helps them maintain that lift even at slow speeds so they don't stall out and crash. Same for us in an airplane. We also don't like to do that. Then we have, I looked at the secondary coverts, which are in the area over the secondary flight feathers. Then we have one row of primary coverts right there in front, followed by the primary flight feathers. And then we have the secondary flight feathers. You might see that the primaries are covered up quite a lot on a folded wing. Yeah, they're very protected and sheltered, because if that bird lost all of those primaries, well, I think he's going to have a problem. There we go. With all these lines, oftentimes, depending on who you ask, those last few secondaries are referred to as the tertiaries. Different books will say different things about which one exactly is the tertiaries, or no, those are not true secondaries. I just say yes, something like that. So here is our bird wing. Is that actually, it's interesting how my animations don't work. Oh, there it goes. Now we're talking. The wing folding and unfolding so you can see how everything moves. And you may be wondering, how do they decide which one's primary and which one's a secondary? You can look in this wing right here. I superimposed the bones, and the primaries are attached to these bones up here, the bird's hand, and the secondaries are attached to the bird's forearm. Now you know. Now, here's another really nice animation from the Law's Guide to Drawing Birds. Well, rather, these are illustrations from the Law's Guide to Drawing Birds turned into an animation. And it is one of those devious LBBs, those little brown birds, a sparrow viewed without the field marks, to get an idea of all these little feather groups. Now, here is just a scan from Sibley's Guide to Birds. There's some nice little feather groups, all that little information in the beginning of your Sibley guide. And I like going by their stuff. It's nice, but just another view. This is probably a representation of a sparrow, if I had to assume. I'm going to go through these quickly because we already talked about all these head feather groups. But I got the brilliant idea, well, what if I just colorize this illustration with my iPad, and we can look at some of these field marks that you might see in a random sparrow. So we see an eye stripe, partial eye stripe, that might be going through the eye. We see, I would call that a broken eye ring. The feathers around, those little rows of feathers around the eye might be slightly lighter, but they're also broken up by that eye stripe. The eyebrow is big and light colored, very, very prominent. There might be stripes along the malar feathers. You might call, if the whole thing is a different color, you might call that a malar stripe, or there might be along the edges, it might be those lateral throat stripes. There might be a stripe along the bottom of the auriculars, and we'll use some of those anatomy directional terms, the subauricular stripe. I don't really hear that thrown around very much in birding, me personally, but it gives me a label to put on my diagram and then read it out to you. Now, let us spot some field marks while I have you captive here. Let's see. Do I see any wing bars? Yes, I do. So, the little flycatcher looking guy up here, these light stripes on his coverts, those are his wing bars. Pretty handy dandy to compare the bird with wing bars versus the bird without wing bars. While I'm over here looking at the top right bird, the blue-gray gnatcatcher, I can see he has a magnificent eye ring right here, very bold, and that is definitely an unbroken eye ring. We're gonna go to the next bird. That is a really nice crown stripe on this bird right here. Very nice crown stripe. Looks like an eye stripe going through his eyes. There's a stripe along his malar or under his auriculars right here. Not too bad. And some interesting wing bars going on for this guy. Quite a lot different from the flycatcher above him. And I would be remiss if I did not highlight the magnificent eyebrow of, of the Carolina wren. So that brings us to more prairie warbler. Who would like to do a little bit more sketching with me of our prairie warbler? Let's get to it. Now that we've gotten a little more familiar with the landscape of the feathers. Now, pardon me while I reposition a few things. And how are we doing for time? How much past 7 can I go? All right, sounds great. All right, so I will be able to keep talking at you reasonably until 8:15. You said yes. Here we go. Use my hair in the camera. All right. So I have a nice little prairie warbler and my page is visible. That was almost too easy. I felt like I needed to have like some kind of complication. Sometimes I like to start out my sketch with a slightly different color because that gives me no, I think I got it. I just forgot to pick it back up. My apologies to people on Zoom. Now, I have all these things set up, and I like to sometimes start a sketch in a slightly different color. Right here, I have this non-photo blue pencil. It gives me a chance to work out my details, work out my proportions before I start making bolder lines with my, in this case, a mechanical pencil, because it's always sharp. It's really nice. So I'm going to start out with this non-photo blue, and then I'm going to make the lines a little bit bolder. So here we go. I think I'll probably just do one more quick sketch because I don't want to run out of time. So let's see. So I want to start out, I am going to scrutinize the negative space behind the bird. I'm pointing with my blue pencil up here. Behind the bird, I'm just trying to draw the shape of the green background. So we'll start with the head, the back of the head, and then get very gently curving shape. And then the tail is not much different of a shape. So here we go. And then let's get some shape of that head, and then perhaps some body of that bird. And I would also kind of scrutinize the direction of the beak and the shape of the throat to the breast. I'm looking for this angle right here. And you'll notice now I need to make these circles a little bit bigger. Nice round fat bird or borb, depending on how fat that bird is. So there we go. Now I've got some rough shapes. Let's find where the wrist of that bird is sitting. Forming that lower edge of the wing is way over here, thereabouts. And then the wing tip is far below the tail in this case, drooping way down here. There we go. There's the direction of the wing. There's my fat bird. And then we have some of these undertail coverts right here. All right, let's make a circle for this bird's wing. Very good. And there's a couple of legs going off in some directions. There's one right here. And then there's just a little foot up here. Real nice. All right, so here's some funky shapes going on. A little bill. And now you'll see why I did things with that very light colored pencil first, because then I can kind of correct myself, because I inevitably need to correct myself. Always need correction. When I tried to go off in funky directions with some of this stuff. So now I'm looking at the bird's throat, and it comes out a little bit. And there's the bird's nape right here. And back. There we go. And we got the wings coming down here. And let's see the edges of these things. Actually, we have two lines for that tail. And we might want some secondary feathers covering up our primaries. Good. And we might even see a little bit of the other wing back there. Good. There it goes. Drawing under pressure. We're not going for perfection. We're going for familiarity with the shapes, the lines, the proportions. They are cute, aren't they? So there we have it. Another just real quick sketch. I can show you some better sketches, but you saw me actually make this one. So it's good for now, good enough for government work. Again, I will return to my sketches that were not done with a anything pointed at my head. Is that, yeah, it looks like the non-photo blue is showing up pretty well in this example. So I'm going to take us back over to the presentation again. Highly mobile presentation tonight. Hi, everybody. There we have it. That's our little prairie warbler. And as what I would even suggest, if you're trying to study one particular bird, is go onto the magical internet and find a lot of photos of that bird in different poses. And that's what you were looking at in my sketch, in my other previously made sketchbook page, is lots and lots of different poses of one particular bird species, which now escapes my memory. So here's another prairie warbler. This is what I would definitely call a borb. So that would be a really fun one to do as well. Or even our lovely alder flycatcher. So we're not going to sit and sketch all of these right now, but just like looking at them, we can look for that big circle, that oval that would form much of the bird's body, and another circle that would give us that head, give us those proportions. There's our line for the bill, and also other lines that would show us the length of the tail, or even the distance that the primary flight feathers right there are extended past the secondaries. Did you know that is a very important detail to note on things like flycatchers when you're trying to differentiate all these really similar species? Now you do. Sometimes best differentiated from photos or sketches. So I'm not going to do this live demonstration. This is just something I did on my iPad, and then I just imported the photo here. So that was that bird with all those things. This is somewhat slower sketching method presented in the Law's Guide to Drawing Birds, but it's very useful to try out and experiment with. So here I've done those circles, and I've kind of looked, trying not to make sure my head circle doesn't go too far forward, looking at how far that head projects past the breast. It does not. And then I'll smooth those shapes out. I'll look at where the secondary feathers stop, and I'll also make a line that's the leading edge of the wing right there. And maybe that's probably one of my legs right there. And then go back in and with a different color block out those secondaries covering up the primaries and the tail. And even block in each of those feather groups, those coverts, and the alula. And you could even see small creases at the edges of the feather groups on the bird's head. That all gives you some great detail you can put on your page. There we go. There's a completed quick alderfly catcher sketch. Ugh, it's a bit messy, but you get the idea. Then I would just suggest get out in the field and try it out. You can do sketches from your field guides. You can do sketches from internet photos. You can do sketches out in the field. Here I've put in some examples also from the Law's Guide to Drawing Birds. What can I say? He's a really great teacher. Check out the website wildwonder.org for a wealth of videos all about different types of nature art. So what you need to get out in the field, I have some of these tools over here. I would recommend paper and a pencil, very basic. But if you wanted to get more than that, you can get some source of color. I have a really nice custom designed and 3D printed watercolor palette right here that clips onto my notebook. And then I filled it with exactly the colors I wanted that I find useful. Or you can use colored pencils, whatever you want. I highly recommend a pair of binoculars if you're looking at birds. And just settle in and wait for your birds. Or you can do it walking, I guess, whatever floats your boat. While you're waiting for birds, you can go ahead and add the supporting information to your page, like your location, the date and time that you are recording in your notebook. This is a scientific journal, so you want these supporting details. You could even have the weather that you encountered on this particular day, so you can look back at your notes and see how things change over the course of a year. And start sketching as the birds arrive. Here's a little look at my own field kit. My lovely Patagonia messenger bag over there is really handy. I like it a lot because everything is in front of me and accessible. I also have a couple of watercolor palettes, one or two maybe. But a really large one is actually Jack's watercolor palette that I ordered from wildwonder.org. And it has some fabulous fabulous quality watercolors. So it's now my new favorite. I also like to occasionally use the non-photo blue pencil or skip straight to a mechanical pencil, or any number of fine line pens is really useful for sketching natural stuff. I always like make sure I have all my comfort items. I'm dressed for the weather because I'm going to be here for a while. Even these tiny folding chairs over on the table, got them off Amazon. They were pretty inexpensive, or you can go to some of those outdoor stores and maybe pay a lot more money for something that won't break in 5 minutes of use. Field sketching, you saw my really messy, ugly page of all those tiny bird silhouettes. That is fast and loose. That is the style to use because birds move. Sometimes a bird moved and okay, then what? Well, start a new drawing. Bird moved, start a new drawing. Okay, now they're back in the original position. Okay, I can get more details on my first drawing. And that is the example that we're seeing right here with this horned lark. You might think that, oh, I'm not good enough to do field sketching. No. All this I talked about tonight we're not going for perfection. We're going for something on the page that will that'll help stimulate your brain to keep those memories. And it'll also be some hard copy notes that you can refer to later. What if you're out and you don't have a camera and you see a rare bird? Those notes and those sketches are valid for proving that you saw a rare bird, even if you couldn't take a photo of it. So this improves that focus, those observation skills, and he puts those details into your memory. Now, I showed you a few photos of a fantastic trip I went on, and believe it or not, that trip is happening again this summer, and it's called the Andes to Amazon Nature Journaling Adventure. If you wanted to check out a little more information about that trip, you could scan that QR code. I'm not getting any kickbacks from my friends, Marley and Nancy. I just believe in it, and I think they run an amazing trip. Let's see. Let's put some lovely sights on the screen. Yes, my video is working. Perfect, thank you. That was my 5-minute warning. Quite an adventure. This is us after we journeyed a 50-mile river trip to our Amazon lodge that is called the Waita Lodge. It is my new favorite place in the world. We saw 2 species of river dolphins and a freshwater stingray, not to mention the sloths and the capybaras. Here's another one of our excursions. There's no roads there. Water is the highway, hence the need to take a 50-mile canoe trip to get to the lodge. And then moving back to the mountains in the cloud forest, more hummingbirds in one place than I've ever seen in my life. This is just one short video of the hummingbird action at one single feeder. There were a lot of feeders. It was great. I always have a struggle of sitting down to do art or taking photos that I can then do art from later. The struggle is real. I know we can't all drop everything and fly to Ecuador. So there are a few local workshops that people can sign up for. I neglected to check if Birds and Blooms still has spaces available, but this is a upcoming workshop that I and many other people will be teaching at. It is a weekend-long retreat at Camp Allen in Navasota. You can find out more about that by getting on the Camp Allen website or just searching in your Google search, Camp Allen, Birds in Bloom, to find out all the details. There are the rates there on the page. I'll also be doing a general nature journaling class at the Houston Botanic Garden, Sunday, March 22nd. Or you can contact me directly because as Wild Arts of Texas, I do private classes and events. I'm working on setting up some workshops as soon as I get a few other things off my plate, like tonight's presentation. Let me see, moving on. There are some handy resources. I've mentioned some of these books a couple of times that I like to use. Specifically, The Law's Guide to Drawing Birds is absolutely wonderful. There is a QR code on the screen. If your phone can't scan it from back there, I'll put it on the screen larger in a moment. That goes to my Google Drive folder that will have a few nice resources, PDFs that you can download based on the information of this talk. And here is this. If you would like to find out about workshops that I'll be doing in the near future, you can go to this Google form and enter your email list, or even enter a question in the form. And I will get that all settled and notify the whole list once I get a few more things on the calendar. Thank you so much.